Hey there! Today we are gonna talk about probably the most important thing a beginner photographer or videographer should learn: the camera settings. It's crucial to set your camera right before shooting. Only this way you can take photos with the right exposure and color accuracy. Just get this, with properly adjusted settings and a good original picture, you won't have to waste your time on editing. But if you fail to set your camera right, even editing won't save your shot. That's why I decided to explain how to adjust camera settings to change the exposure and color accuracy. I'll show you how to do it with a Sony camera. But it doesn't matter what camera you own, because all cameras have the same settings and you can set any other camera the same way. This is not a guide for specific situations, I'll just explain how each settings affects the image. So after watching this video, you'll learn how to do it on your own. But if something is unclear, be sure to ask your questions in the comments below, and I'll try to help you. Let's start with ISO, or the camera sensitivity to light. So how does it work? By increasing it, you make the image sensor more perspective to light, which allows it to capture an image in the darkness, like late in the evening or at night. On the other hand, high ISO might cause significant noise and color accuracy will also be compromised. All cameras have their ISO limitations. To check your camera's ISO, try shooting in different lighting situations and with different ISO values. Then compare the results by viewing your shots on a big screen. It is definitely the best way to get to know your camera better. Sure, you can trust the numbers from the manual, but isn't it more interesting to test it yourself and see what these numbers actually look like? Here is another thing about light sensitivity. Cameras of all brands have a particular ISO value that provides the highest quality of the picture. And it doesn't matter whether you increase or decrease the rate, the quality will be worse than with the basic value. For example, I know that I can crank my camera's ISO up to 3200. Although the quality gets worse, I can still take a great shot. So look up the basic ISO value in your camera manual or on the internet. Also test your camera in different situations to see it with your own eyes. The shutter speed controls the time when the shutter of your camera is open. The longer the shutter is open, the more light the sensor perceives. The less the shutter speed, the quicker the shutter functions, effectively minimizing the amount of light. For instance, if you set the shutter speed as 1/200th, then the shot will be captured as fast as 1/200th of a second. 1/50th is a slower speed that allows you to capture the shot in 1/50th of a second. Just remember, the higher the denominator, the quicker the shutter speed is. This might be confusing at first, but you'll get used to it. You can use shutter speed to control the exposure, meaning that if the image is overexposed, you need to increase the shutter speed from 1/50th to 1/200th. Another thing that the shutter speed is responsible for is blurring the objects that are in motion. For example, if you try to capture a fast-moving object, like a car and an athlete, a 1/50th or a 1/30th shutter speed will give you a blurred mess. That is why you need to set the shutter speed that would suit the scene you are shooting. The same applies to capturing video. Here is a simple formula for you. If you want a natural looking blur in your videos, you need the shutter speed that would be double the frames per second rate. Like if you have a 25 FPS rate, the shutter speed should be 1/50th. If you have a 50 FPS rate, set the shutter speed as 1/100th, and so on. When you shoot videos, the shutter speed you set won't do any good for fixing the exposure, but it will give you a nice looking blur. If you want to record a fast moving objects, you'll need a higher shutter speed, like 1/1000th or even higher. Only this way you'll make sure that the objects are clearly seen. I would also like to talk about RAW formats, which are available in most cameras. Some cameras only offer RAW files for photo shooting, but others provide video capturing in RAW as well. Take for instance the Blackmagic cameras. Although photos shot in this format weigh a lot, they contain the most information about color in each pixel and also allow you to correct the exposure and white balance after shooting. My camera offers this format only for photos and I always shoot in RAW. The problem is that some photo editors might not work with the RAW. Facing such a problem, them right before you start editing can be very frustrating. You would waste so much time while searching for a suitable editor. So I recommend you PhotoWorks, a photo editor I use myself. It supports over 450 RAW formats. Once you open your RAW file within PhotoWorks, you'll see a RAW processing module with a set of profiles that include overall enhancement, color and contrast boosting of landscapes, and natural tones for portraits. After you pick the processing profile, you'll find yourself in the editing module where you can easily manipulate your shot. You can fix the white balance, correct the exposure, or apply a 3D LUT profile or a filter. If you are ready to join the RAW squad and want to make sure that you are easily able to process your RAW files, then click the link in the description to try PhotoWorks absolutely free. If you like this image editor and want to order, the same link will give you a huge discount. It's a cool deal since PhotoWorks is capable of much more than just RAW processing. Go and try it for yourself. In short, the Aperture is a camera element comprised of several blades that create an opening. The width of this opening can be changed, greatly affecting your shots. The aperture value depends on the optics you use, but there is still a rule of thumb. The bigger the value, the narrower the aperture and the less light travels through it, and vice versa. By controlling the amount of light, you control the exposure. Besides, the aperture value also controls the depth of field, so the lower the value, the more blurred the background will be. If you open the aperture wide, you'll get so much light, so you will have to balance it out by increasing the shutter speed or by applying a natural density filter. White balance is an important setting that allows you to keep white color truly white. This is the key setting since it changes other colors along with white. For instance, the skin tone might change, which is quite difficult to bring back unless you shoot in RAW. A natural skin tone is very important. You want like a person with a green or red face, will you? You sure can set the white balance automatically, but sometimes it doesn't work right, especially when there's little actual white color in the picture. So I advise you to choose a profile that should be built into your camera. Or better yet, you can use a gray card to set the balance right. A gray card is easy to use. Just put it into the frame so that it fills it almost entirely, then adjust the white balance in your camera and that's it. This is not a perfect way, especially when the shooting conditions change rapidly, but at least you'll be sure that the white balance in your shot is correct. These were the main camera settings that all of you should know about. But if you have any more questions, please let me know in the comments. Sure, it might be hard for you now. Adjusting the settings can take a great deal of time in the beginning, but the more you practice, the less time you'll need. When you finish watching the video, yes, right that moment, take your camera and try to adjust the settings for the environment you are in. Take a few shots to see how it goes. And if you find this video helpful, make sure to like it and subscribe to our channel. That's it for today. Have a good day. See you soon.